I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
The diabolical leader of the Vietnam squad.
Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to the newest episode of the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu Show. So today, we're going to take a little bit of a negative turn. You know, we usually keep things pretty positive on the podcast, but I thought it would be fun to maybe go a little negative. And we are going to go into the 10 most annoying things. I talked about my 16-year jiu-jitsu journey last week, and I thought maybe we could look at not 10 tips that I had, but 10 things, 10 phrases that I've heard quite a few times. I've heard a million times, it feels like. And I feel like most of them have some backhanded, undermining, they have some ulterior motives. And that is what I want to address today. And so all I want to do is take out 16 years of being annoyed on a podcast episode. And I thought the perfect phrase to start with, phrase number one, is let's roll light. And we've heard a lot of different iterations of this. Hey, my right shoulder is hurting. So if you could stay away from my right shoulder and my right knee, and my left shoulder, and my neck, and my left knee, and my ankle on my left side. But besides that, everything else, I feel good, man. And let's just roll light, go. And then we know how that round goes. Dude who just made all these injury excuses goes 1,000,000%, right? Here's another version of the exact same thing is, hey, let's roll light. And you start, and you are rolling light. You both are warming up. You know, it's a 5-minute round. You guys are thinking about your bodies. You're here to warm up. You're here to feel a lot better. And you got that movement. Oh my gosh, did he just go a little too hard for that sweep? I should defend it a little harder than I have been. Oh my gosh, he's going so hard now. Why is he going so hard? Stop. Stop what you're doing. You're going too hard. I better go as hard as I can too. Now we are doing a live round. Here's why that happens. Because neither of you knows how to roll light. If one of you did, you wouldn't escalate it. Just one of you. It's that you both are stupid. And I know it's a harsh thing to say, but it's true. You both have too much ego to roll light. That is simply what it is. You can see black belts roll light, and it's common. And that doesn't mean that they don't have ego. It means that they know how to respect a roll light round. They go, okay, well, we don't have to roll so hard. Of course, I've had black belts that don't respect that. You know, that don't follow the unwritten rules of being a black belt. I should do an episode on that someday, the unwritten rules of black belt. But anyway, when people talk about let's roll light and then they don't do it, the way to prevent this, the way to fix this is simple. You do not push it harder. And you're going, well, he might pass my guard then. Yes, you're rolling. It doesn't matter. You're not rolling live. He passed your guard. Work side control at a light pace. A lot of times he will adjust and be like, oh gosh, he didn't even try to stop me passing his guard. I must be going too hard. If he keeps trying to submit, just tap. And then say, hey man, don't submit. We were rolling light. And then, say, hey, Josh said on the podcast that you're stupid. And you should listen to the I Suck at Jiu Jitsu Show wherever you get your podcast. We put out new episodes every Thursday. And so that is a really good one to start with. And I thought the next one to go to, phrase number 2 that has been annoying me to death, that has been grinding my gears, is you beat me because I was tired. I've been training a lot. And usually I don't say it like that. Usually it's not, you beat me because I was tired. It's like after you got beat up in a round, you'll come up and you'll be like, hey, yeah, man, I've been really tired. I've been doing a lot of training sessions. I actually trained this morning with all the ultra heavyweights this morning. And so I'm pretty exhausted. And that's why I had to play bottom half guard and smash half guard so much on you. I was really just working on my defense the whole time. And it was, it's just because I was wore out from earlier and exhausted. So we need to get this out of our head too, because being tired is part of jiu-jitsu. Being able to do jiu-jitsu while tired is part of jiu-jitsu. Being able to know your body well enough that you aren't an idiot and you don't go in and train way too hard when you are too beat up and you're too tired and injure yourself more. And the other thing with like, oh, you beat me because I was tired. It's like, well, don't be tired. Use your energy more wisely. It's not, your cardio has nothing to do with me. It's not my job for you to be in shape. It's my job to make you tired. And so, yes, you beat me because I was tired. It doesn't matter if we were at a tournament. And I've heard this. I remember I did the Chicago Open one time, and I had like 3 matches in my weight class, and I won my weight class. And then I go and I do the open class, and there was a really tough kid on the other side. I think I was a juvenile still. Really tough kid on the other side. He had won a lot of stuff, and I was really hoping to get to compete against him. He has 1 match, and he wins. He gets into the final. I have like 2 more matches, and then I compete against him because I was a low seed. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you guys. I always tell you guys when I get thrashed, I beat this kid down. I starched this kid. It looked like a crime what I was doing to this kid. I was surprised mid-match. I think my coach, Kyle, was coaching me. I think he was surprised mid-match how bad I was beating this kid. And we get off the mat, we get our medals, we step off the podium, and he goes, yeah, I really like to compete against you again when I'm not so exhausted. That match took a lot out of me. I go, dude, I had 4 matches. You had 1. I don't care. You suck. I beat you down. And so that is all of the reasons that you beat me because I was tired is irrelevant. Don't be tired. You're tired because you're using too much energy. You're using too much energy because why? You suck. And so if you're losing because you're tired, that's a part of jiu-jitsu. You were just losing. Being tired means that your technique wasn't enough to keep you from being tired. And so that is another one that always gets me. Man, this episode is just making me angrier by the second. I shouldn't have done this episode. I'm sorry. We're on number 2. We're going to go to number 3 now. Phrase number 3, and you guys will never hear me say this. And you guys you've heard me say it negatively a lot. But I got screwed by the ref. There's all kinds of versions of this same phrase. Oh, I got screwed. I didn't get points that I should have gotten. Oh, I normally only do points matches and it was submission only. I normally only do submission only and it was points. I normally only do gi and it was no gi or something along those lines. And the truth is, none of that really matters. None of the, oh, I got screwed over, this happened, that happens. The only thing that matters when you compete is if your hand got raised or not. Nothing else matters. And so you don't have to make some excuse. You can just lose a jiu-jitsu match. It's okay. Most likely that person is putting in as much or more work into jiu-jitsu and has as much or more passion than you. They are also putting in and trying really hard. Sometimes you're going to lose to those people. Sometimes people are just better than you. And it's this loser's mentality that says the loss wasn't my fault. It was the ref, it was the rule set, it was the clothes we were wearing, anything like that. Anything like that is just not true. All you're doing is robbing yourself of a chance to correct something, a chance to fix something. Even if that something is that you have bad cardio, even if that something is that you got tired because you had 3 matches before the final. But the problem with it is you knew you were doing a tournament. You have to be prepared for 3 matches and then a final. Who are you wanting to, when you make these excuses of the ref screwed me or I had too many matches before or whatever, and you say it as if you shouldn't have lost, then you're living in a fantasy world. You're trying to compete in a fantasy tournament where, how hard you worked beforehand and how much you believe in yourself is all that matters. It doesn't. What happens in the match, what happens in that 6 to 10 minute moment, that is what matters. And so you have control in that 6 to 10 minute moment. You have to make something happen. You have to win the matches. Of course, there are matches that there were points I should have gotten, advantages I should have gotten, whatever, that I have lost. And it's been frustrating. But you know what? In those same matches, there were mistakes that I made way before that. I can't name to you a single match that I did every single thing perfectly, exactly the way I should have, and then got screwed by the ref. Never. And so just the I got screwed by the ref mentality. You probably didn't. And maybe the ref did hate you. Maybe there was a bias. Don't compete in those tournaments if it's that important to you. But if you know there's a bias and you still choose to compete in the tournament, you lose the right to complain. You chose to compete. You chose the rule set. And so, those annoy me. Here's a funny one. And I've heard this in the jiu-jitsu space multiple times. And it is when people will say, "Do you know who I am?" And what's funny about this is like, quote unquote, famous jiu-jitsu people will say this. "Do you know who I am? How dare you not give my student these points? Do you know who I am?" And the hilarious thing is like, hey, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I've been around jiu-jitsu forever, and I don't even know who you are. And then here's the problem too, is like, I have been around jiu-jitsu forever, and let's say maybe I do know who you are. But I'm a very, very specific person. If we went to any other group setting with anybody that wasn't me and you and then all the people at the jiu-jitsu tournaments that we hang out with, no one's going to know who you are. No one's going to care. And so when we put so much pressure on ourselves in the jiu-jitsu space because we care about having a name, let me just discourage you from that. No one will ever care. We just roll around on the ground with other people. I saw a dude who's overweight that teaches Filipino martial arts that had a video that had more views and likes than any jiu-jitsu video that I ever see. And it was him talking trash on jiu-jitsu and how people are hugging and rolling around on the ground together and whatever. And the truth is, what can we say? He was right. He was making fun of us, and it got a ton of views because what he was saying was true. Can we beat him up? Yeah, of course. Any of us can. Does that matter, though? I mean, yeah, of course. But will anybody remember us for it? No. So when you are in this "do you know who I am" mindset, you better be bringing a 7 to 8, 9-figure business to the table. You better be bringing something other than "I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt." It's like, dude, I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. Who cares? And so, yeah, funny story. One time, this is honest, I've reffed tournaments 2 times and hated it. Refereeing is the worst job in the world. Hated it. And one time I'm doing an AGF, and this guy, and it's funny, I don't know who he was. He was coaching one of his students, and his student lost the match. I mean, there wasn't even a doubt in my mind. Even though I had not reffed, I had competed probably more than anyone else at the entire venue. And so I was very aware of the rule set. And it was something dumb. It was like, your kid got his back taken, and you were arguing that like it shouldn't have been points. It was weird. But at one point in this argument, he is just trying to go in on me. He is like so upset. There's a barricade between us, and I just assume he's probably not going to fight me. And the coach yells at me something like, and this is a kid's match. This is in front of all the parents. He's totally making a fool of himself in front of his own people. And he says, "Do you know who I am?" And I paused and I looked at him, and I really didn't know who he was. And I go, "Do you know who I am?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Good." And I walked away. And he was standing, I'm not joking, his hands were out as if he was like asking for a donation. He didn't know what to do. And the best part was all of his students. And this is one of those cult affiliations. You know, he was the king. They had him up on, a throne while I was making fun of him. And they all dropped the throne and started laughing at him. He was furious. Never seen the guy since. But yeah, do you know who I am? Stupidest thing you can say in jiu-jitsu. Let's go to the next question, or the next phrase. Oh, this one. Everyone has heard this one, right? If you've done jiu-jitsu for any period of time, you have to have heard, here's how you could have finished that submission easier. And this is from the guy who you just tapped out. Yeah, it took you a long time to finish this choke. This is also another, I told you guys I'm going to be too fired up. This is also another story. This is honest to God. This is wrong what I did. But I was a purple belt, and I was training at my coach's gym. This is obviously however many years ago, 10 years ago. And this guy, I cross collar choked him from like close guard or from mount, something like that. And I mean, he hand fought as hard as he could. He probably held out for like 15 seconds on the cross collar choke, and then it finished. And then he goes, if you really twisted your wrists more, you would have finished that cross collar choke. And I was like, wait, what did you just say to me? And he goes, if you would twisted your wrists more, you would have finished the cross collar choke. I go, I just finished the cross collar choke. And he goes, well, you would have finished it easier. And right there, beep, the round ends. And I'm furious, right? I'm like, dude, next chance I get, I'm going to get this guy next round. Oh gosh, the class is over. He's leaving. Like, next chance I get, I'm going to get this guy. And honestly, enough time had passed the next time I get the chance to roll with him that I really should have forgotten, that I really should have grown up a little bit. But I have axes that I've been grinding since the second grade. I'm not going to forget 6 months later that you told me here's a better way to finish the cross collar choke after I submitted you with it. And so I make sure, I don't even know, I probably do it like subtly, tell the coach, like, hey, Kyle, could we make sure to do some 5-minute rounds at the end of class today? Because I'm just trying to get some extra rounds in, and like full rounds and not just positional spars. Kyle's like, oh, yeah. You're competing in a couple weeks. Of course, Josh, anything to help you. And so then I go with this guy, and I cross collar choke him 100 times in the round. And there was no coaching. He did not tell me how to finish the cross collar choke. And I don't know if he got the message, but I never saw him again either. I don't know. Maybe this should just be Josh is mean. Maybe that should just be what this episode is. Let's go ahead and we'll take it to a quick commercial break before I get canceled anymore or you guys think I am too abusive to people. And now that we're on our commercial break, I just wanted to tell you guys about something we haven't talked about in a while. And it is kind of a way to look at jiu-jitsu. It's a whole jiu-jitsu perspective put into a single book. And in this perspective, this book is called The Three Lenses. This is available online. It's actually available completely for free. But this book will help you actually know what the heck people are talking about when they are teaching jiu-jitsu, when they're showing different ideas, when they're talking about different training methods. This book has kind of a glossary in it to just explain basic jiu-jitsu training terms to you. And on top of it, the 3 lenses itself are the 3 perspectives that people will look through to learn jiu-jitsu. And so for you, maybe you learn a little bit better through repetitive drilling. And this will teach you how to repetitive drill, what to repetitive drill, and why you learn better from that. Maybe you learn better by feel and you don't learn well from drilling, and you learn better through live rolling. We would call you the artistic lens learner. And when we have that with the 3 lenses, we can teach you to just roll live and never have to drill a move again. And then there are even people that learn scientifically, and they learn in small details, and they learn in breaking everything down to the finest, most important things. And for you, again, we have a whole chapter. We have a whole set of training methods. We have a whole set of ideologies that will help you learn jiu-jitsu on your own so much better. And again, this ebook is totally free and it is available at simplifyingjiujitsu.com. When you get on the ebook, it will also put you on the Gi Gazette. That is our free emailing list that you guys absolutely need to be on. We've been giving out free recipes, been doing all kinds of different tips and bonuses for the people that subscribe to the Gi Gazette. And that's all I have for you. Let's go ahead and go back into today's episode. Thank you very much, Josh. We'll get back into today's episode. Honestly, if people that don't watch the podcast saw that that is totally unedited, like don't watch the podcast on video, I think they would be shocked by how one take these whole entire episodes of the podcast are, these whole 45-minute to an hour episodes. Let's look at phrase number 6 of most annoying things that people say to me all the time. What do you weigh? Right after losing. And it's not like, oh, wow, you feel heavy. You only weigh 190. You feel like you're 400 pounds. That's one of the greatest compliments you can say to somebody. If you say that to me, you're my best friend. Now, it's the people that go, what do you weigh? And I go, 190. Oh, I weigh 187. It's why you pass my guard. What? What are you talking about? No, it's not. I just was better than you. And it's like, it's weird. It's the whole weight thing in jiu-jitsu. It really is a matter of perspective. This is really funny. I heard Ron, who was just on the podcast a couple weeks ago. It's John McLaughlin is what his real name is. But Ron, who was just on the podcast a few weeks ago, was saying, he's like 140. And he was saying, what's interesting? He goes, I'll never know how it feels to just get thrashed by somebody 40, 50 pounds lighter than me. And I see Ron beat black belts that are 190 pounds. And it's like that ego trip has got to be hard, right? To not have the excuse of, well, you're bigger. Like, I'm substantially bigger and substantially stronger, and you still beat me down. That's always hilarious to see. But as Ron was saying, he was telling me it as if like, I feel bad for you big guys, man. It's like you're always vulnerable to getting beat up by a little guy. And so it was funny to hear it that way. But people love to do that. Like, what do you weigh? That's a really common, subtle excuse post jiu-jitsu round is like, oh, well, you beat me up, but you have 15 pounds on me. And yes, can weight make a difference in jiu-jitsu? Of course. Can strength make a difference in jiu-jitsu? Of course. Does complaining about it change anything? No, it doesn't. It doesn't change a single thing. And so why make the excuse? Again, you rob yourself from the ability to win jiu-jitsu rounds later in life. That's like Ron is the perfect example of this, is because when he got to me, he was decent at jiu-jitsu. But if he went with somebody who was just way too physical and huge, he was going to get thrown around. But he also didn't shy away from it. And he's always trained with everybody. And now, legitimately, I see him beating down guys that have 80 pounds on him. You probably shouldn't roll with those people, but like beating them down that have 80 pounds of muscle on him. And it's just crazy to get to see that. But it comes from not making the excuse of, hey, what do you weigh? Oh, yeah, that's why you beat me. It's like, what do you weigh? Well, I'm going to figure out a way to beat you. I'm going to figure out a way to make my jiu-jitsu work against you. It doesn't mean that like everybody's jiu-jitsu just beats big guys and it doesn't matter. You have to be incredibly good to beat much bigger people, especially if they have any skill. You have to be very, very good. But I don't know. I think that should be your goal. And so let's move on. Let's go to phrase number 7 of things that make Josh way too angry. Yeah, I'm just trying to not use strength. Usually this guy is totally out of breath and has just been using all kinds of strength after he says that. But there is actually a legitimate reason to not use strength. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. Being efficient and how important it is to be efficient in your jiu-jitsu training. Because just like we looked at on phrase number 2, you beat me because I was tired. That doesn't matter. It's your job to not be tired. And so learning to control the amount of strength that you use in each round, control the amount of strength that you use in each session. I think that is a really good thing to try to do. But to never use your strength ever, if you have it, doesn't make sense. It just doesn't to me. It's like the flexible guy who says, yeah, I'm trying to not use my flexibility. Or the fast guy who goes, yeah, I'm trying to not be fast. It's like these are physical attributes. You learn to use them efficiently and effectively. There are occasional times that I will get really rigid and use strength. But my ideal jiu-jitsu, my perfect jiu-jitsu, is when I don't have to do that because I can do it forever if I don't have to get really rigid and I don't have to use strength. So when you're looking at, and we've given tips on this before, but when you're looking at learning to roll without strength, it is not you go with a black belt who beats you up all the time and go, yeah, I'm not going to use any strength against him. He's just going to beat you up. He beats you up with strength. It's not going to change anything. But what you can do that's easier and much more attainable is you go with somebody that you can beat up. In somebody that usually, because you are like most people, you use 100% strength 100% of the time. And when you go to roll with that guy that you can beat up, you go, okay, I can normally pass this guard. What if I try, instead of 100% strength, I try to use like 60% strength and still try to pass his guard? I don't lose my effectiveness. I try to just be able to still pass. If you go, man, I cannot pass at 60%, maybe you add 80%, or maybe you try to tweak your technique, right? You should be able to pass at 60% if it's somebody you can normally beat. Then you can subtract more and subtract more. And this is a method that I used when I first started coaching jiu-jitsu because I was surrounded by brand new white belts and I was trying to compete against really high-level purple belts, really high-level brown belts on like an international level, while my 95% of my training partners were brand new white belts. And so how do you go with them? One, you make them good, and that's going to help you a lot. But two, you learn to roll without strength because they're going to use physicality. They're going to try to use their strength. And if you can be effective on a guy while being efficient, then you learn it as a skill. And for me, it was like there was this point at brown belt where I started to roll in tournaments and go, I feel like I'm not using strength. I still was, but it was so much less and it was so much more noticeable, and my results were getting so much better because I was actually feeling what was happening. I was way more relaxed and I was way more efficient. I wasn't getting tired because I wasn't just blitzing super hard and gassing in the first 3 minutes. That can make you look good for the first 3 minutes of a match, but it doesn't matter if you get tired and you lose, right? That's kind of been the answer to every one of these phrases is it doesn't matter. Shut up. Everyone hates you at your gym and talks bad about you because you say stuff like this. Stop saying it. Get over it. Get better. That's the answer to every single 1 through 10. But learning to roll without strength is a very good thing. It's just most people's idea on how to do it is so far off that they're never going to be able to accomplish it that way. You accomplish it in small increments, and it's a feel thing. You have to do it for a long time to really learn to roll without strength. Oh, this is a good one. I don't hear this much anymore. And I mean, this could be that I'm a black belt. Maybe other people are saying it to my white and blue belts and they're hearing it a lot. But people love to say, well, if this was a real fight, I would just. What would you just? We're in gis right now. It's not a real fight. Why would we be wearing gis? Why would we be on a mat right now? It's not a real fight. No one said it was a real fight. We're drilling spider guard. It isn't a real fight. And so you saying, well, I could punch you in the face from here, it doesn't matter. It's not real. We're not doing that right now. It would be like we're going to play a game of football and then I just be like, hey, you don't have a bulletproof vest on. I could shoot you right now. Well, like, yeah, you could, but that's not the point of the game. We're not supposed to be doing that. And so in a real fight, I would just do this. MMA guys do say this still. That's really, you used to hear this more from guys that thought that they saw red, but I feel like those guys get beat up so quickly in jiu-jitsu anymore that you just don't hear a lot of good comments out of them. They just get broken down. At least at Head Nod, they get broken so easily. It's like, come on, could you at least be arrogant for a little bit so we have something to talk about? But the MMA guys that are always like, yeah, jiu-jitsu is not a real fight. MMA is a real fight. And it's like, okay, sounds good. Is boxing a real fight? It's like, because you can punch, because that's your qualification of what makes a real fight, right? It's boxing. You can fight. Like, because obviously by dictionary standards, we recognize that jiu-jitsu is fight. That's the right term. And so you can't separate it that way. You can't argue actual English. The term fight works for a jiu-jitsu match or a jiu-jitsu fight in the same way a boxing match or a boxing fight. And to act like MMA is the one standard of what a real fight is. Yes, it's much closer than a jiu-jitsu match. There's no doubt. But to say it's the one standard of what a real fight is, it is not. That is just not how a fight works. You don't fight in a cage. You don't fight on mats. Right? There are all kinds of other things that could be a fight. Do weapons have to be allowed to be a fight? Where do we draw the line of, oh, wait, now it's a match. Now it's not a fight. Now it's just a sport. Like, dude, all of those things are just a sport. All of those things have weight classes and they have rules. They're sports. And so in a real fight, this would happen and that would happen. It's like, we're not doing that right now. And then that brings me to the next rant, which is phrase number 9. That's just a competition move. Or that's just a self-defense move. Either way, annoying statement. Jiu-jitsu moves, jiu-jitsu techniques are either effective for the situation or they are not. There's no other way to need to differentiate them. They either work for the situation or they do not. And that is the truth about jiu-jitsu. Even when we are not situational sparring, everything is situational. When we are sparring in the gym and it's just we're saying, oh yeah, we're just doing a live round. You know, we are just trying to mess with the MMA guys. We're like, yeah, we're just going to do a live fight, guys. And then we do a jiu-jitsu round. But, okay, the situation is this. There is a specific rule set. We're both wearing gis. You can pull guard because there's no concrete anywhere around. We have a subfloor with mats on top of it. And there is a timer, right? That is a situation. And we train that situation over and over and over again. The idea is, since we get to train that situation at 100% intensity, as hard as we can, what ends up happening is we end up getting like much, much better at being in that intensity, right? It's one of the biggest arguments pro jiu-jitsu for like self-defense is you can train jiu-jitsu at 100%, and you can't train striking arts at 100% without brain damage. And so when we are for a lot, right, do it all the time without brain damage. Jiu-jitsu, you can do it all the time. And so as soon as we start to take our jiu-jitsu and stop realizing that it is us, a physical being placed into a situation and having to grapple our way out of it, that is what jiu-jitsu is. We have to then just go like, oh, well, do you know a technique if you are on concrete and the guy has one arm with a baseball bat and you got shot in the leg earlier that day? Do you know a jiu-jitsu technique for that? I was like, no, I've never been in that situation. I would have to just hope, one, that it was my left leg, because I think I'm a lot more right-legged in my jiu-jitsu, but I would have to just hope that my jiu-jitsu is going to be able to overcome that situation. Even though I've never trained super specifically for that situation. I've never trained for a fight in a pool. But one time I grappled one of my white belts who was like 16 and a really good swimmer in a pool, and I still choked him. The situation didn't matter. The jiu-jitsu translated. Is there I've actually rear naked choked many a student in the pool. I don't know what it is about head nod guys, but we love to do live grappling rounds in the pool. It's the extra element of like maybe you're going to drown. And it also makes you pretty immune to leg locks. Very hard to get a guy on the floor to leg lock him. But anyway, you don't have to train for every single scenario if you learn how to train to just get good at grappling, just get good at accomplishing tasks. For instance, very few of the situations that we've talked about, obviously the pool one's a little bit different, but like any other random fighting situation that I would be in against a single person, my general goal is going to be to connect with them and then be on the ground and be on top. That is what my general goal is. If we had to actually fight, which I'm not going to get in a fight with somebody, except for like this episode right now, I'm a very non-aggressive guy. And so, yeah, I'm not going to fight somebody. I don't even know what the rules are, like, are we wearing gis? I don't know. But anytime you start to differentiate, I think you start to not oversimplify, because simplifying is good. Let's say oversimplify what your jiu-jitsu is. You start to say, no, it only applies to this situation. And some people will then build jiu-jitsu that only applies to a certain situation. And it's very possible. Only applies to wearing a specific set of clothes in a very specific rule set and for a very specific time limit. And they're very good at it. But then when you take them out of it, it's wild how bad their jiu-jitsu translates anywhere else. So if this like idea is making sense to you, the simplest way to do it, and like for me, I would say 80-ish% or more of my jiu-jitsu training is just gi jiu-jitsu. But I do love to do random other things. I love to do no-gi, even though I really don't compete in it much, because it's different. And it keeps me having to adjust my jiu-jitsu. And I was having this conversation with one of my students recently about these big stints where I would have done gi for like a year and nothing else. And then we'd switch to no-gi for like no-gi worlds and do 3 months of it. And my no-gi, of course, would just skyrocket. It would get so much better and would start to try to catch up to my gi. But when I would switch back, of course, my spider guard wasn't as good. My grips weren't, as good as they used to be. But a lot of times I was coming away with new moves and new techniques that were no-gi techniques, and I was getting to apply them to my gi jiu-jitsu. And as I did it more, I started to kind of like the little tweaks of like, okay, I'm going to play jiu-jitsu this way for a while. I'm going to only wear this for a while. This is a fun one. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm definitely going to try it. It sounds silly, and it might be. And so I'll check back with you guys if it is as fun as he claims. But I was looking at this thing. It was like an argument of gi and no gi. And Huron Gracie, of course, is going to come with some Huron Gracie perspective. And his response was like, his comment was like, I love training both, but to this day and forever, my favorite round has always been me in the gi and my opponent without. And I was like, ooh, that's fun. Because you hear people say, and I try to go this way, you hear people that will say in their gi, like, yeah, I try to not grab onto the gi. I grab onto the gi as little as possible, even when we're doing gi, because it helps you translate to no gi. You hear some people that will claim that they do not grab the gi at all. I've seen very few people actually do that. I did have a student that did it for quite a while and got to purple belt. It was very tough purple belt. Quitting jiu-jitsu, but it was like he wanted to only do no gi, and classes were half and half, and he wanted to train all the time. And so he just would do gi and only do no-gi grips. And honestly, like, I would say I've had more focus on this over the last year. This has been a Henry Akins thing that he's been kind of pushing me towards, is grabbing the gi. He says, like, basically never, like, don't grab the gi. I grab it every once in a while still, but I would argue that there are so many times that I've thought that you always had to. For example, Ezekiel chokes, and people call it like a hammer choke or a forearm choke. It's like a very rough, brutal choke. I can do those on legit guys without a gi and without being a jerk and like cross-facing them really hard, but like actually just choke them with my forearm, because I've learned to do it. I've learned to do it no gi. And so there's definitely can be a benefit, but at first it's the gi. It gives you so many more options to get to places that are important, right? You have so many, like, even though an underhook of the arm and an underhook of the head is so awesome to have and so overpowered, to get there, usually you have to grab the sleeve to get the arm and then grab the collar to get the head, right? And so I think that it really does help the progression, grabbing the gi. But if you were trying to be effective everywhere and you were just trying to have your own jiu-jitsu, turn yourself into a weapon that is capable of any situation, drop this person in a rule set, and it doesn't matter, they will win. If that is your goal, the well-rounded goal. That's always been mine. I just always have thought that is more relevant than, and I know it doesn't bring as much money as specificity if you can win something specifically, but I just think in the long run, it makes a difference for your jiu-jitsu. Doing both, being cool with sucking at one of them. Most people that do both are very bad at one of them. It's just how it goes. But yeah, I just think there's something to it that helps. Now, question 10, or phrase 10. This is the last one that makes me angry. And this will offend people. But, I mean, if you are not offended yet, you need to be. What is your lineage? What do you mean? This is just, I think it's just cotton pearl weave gi. No. Not your that's linen. Lineage. What is your lineage? I'm not getting what you're asking me. I don't. Who did your coach learn jiu-jitsu from? And then they learned jiu-jitsu from? How close to the Gracie family? How close to the original techniques are you learning? Well, most of my jiu-jitsu came from watching stuff online. My coach is white. I don't know what else to tell you. I just beat you in the round, though, so what does it matter? And that is, to me, I've had that conversation so many times. I mean, now I know what lineage is, but, and I would argue that if you looked back, I probably don't have bad lineage, compared to some of you inbreds. You guys probably have some Creonch lineages that are terrible. But like, I don't have like, oh yeah, my coach learned from Elio. Like it ain't like that. My coach has a picture with Elio. He met him. So that's something. But the whole lineage thing in jiu-jitsu it's cool to have pride in whatever you want to have pride in. If you want to have pride in your team and lineage is part of that, that's awesome. But if you think that other people's jiu-jitsu is not going to be legitimate because they don't have a lineage, you have not trained in the Midwest. Go around. Just try it out. Just work your way around Midwest country. I don't know if all jiu-jitsu places are like this. I almost would argue that they might not be, because a lot of the coasts that I've been to, they are a lot of affiliated gyms. Most of the gyms I see seem to have affiliations, so I'm sure that they have some type of lineage on the wall that they're very proud of. And again, nothing wrong with that. But it just seems like to me, where I train and a lot of the people that I've trained with, they're like, yeah, we don't really know. We don't really have much of a lineage. We just train jiu-jitsu to get good at jiu-jitsu. We've learned it from all kinds of different people. You know, there were a lot of places as you go around the Midwest, you'll find these coaches that their lineage was they got a blue belt from Hoist Gracie at a seminar, and then they learned jiu-jitsu on their own for 20 years. And so to act like there were these sacred techniques that were then passed down and have just like, and they need to be taught that same way. Like, dude, there was a whole language translation between the techniques that were taught and us doing them now. So you can even use the same techniques, but the explanation is probably going to need to be translated better. You know, it's probably going to need to be translated differently. And so this idea of what's your lineage, that is going to be whether or not I know you're good. I have rolled with so many people from great lineages. I have competed against so many people from great teams. Like, and not just like, oh, they're part of the affiliation. Like the headquarters of Atos and the headquarters of Alliance and coaches on these teams and stuff. And as a random nobody with no lineage, I have beaten a ton of those people. And so that is to say, it really is, at this point, it is irrelevant. There was definitely a point where it made sense because there were people that would say that they taught jiu-jitsu and they did not know jiu-jitsu. And of course, there are people nowadays that do, but there are so many people that actually teach jiu-jitsu. And if you limit all those people by, well, did you learn it from this one family? It's like, no, I didn't. I learned it from these guys. I learned it from these guys. I learned it from these guys who were really good. You know, I learned it from this guy who was a world champion who also had no lineage. You know, like, and so that is, I guess, the last phrase that we'll go with. I think I probably could have, I had a bunch of these. I probably could have done a lot more phrases and been a lot more angry. But I think we'll end it with, what is your lineage? And so if you guys have any other funny phrases, any other things that you hear a lot, be sure to drop them in the comments. But besides that, that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you loved today's episode. Hope it made you a little angry, you know, offended a little bit. But most importantly, I hope that today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.